Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is John Wright, and I'm CEO of TrueDialogue. TrueDialogue is a leading cloud communications platform as a service, or CPaaS, specifically geared for higher education. Today, we are presenting Texting in Higher Education, Regulations and Best Practices, presented by Adam Bowser, partner at Aaron Fox. Adam's been recognized as a Washington, D.C. super lawyer's rising star in communications law for the past 6 years. He remains undefeated in court, having recently won several notable victories for clients brought into class action litigation, particularly the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, or TCPA. As part of his deep experience in consumer protection law, Adam also regularly advises his clients across industries on privacy compliance and risk mitigation strategies. A couple of housekeeping items prior to getting started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please take them to the question box inside of the Zoom control panel, and I'll bring them up at the end of the presentation for our Q&A. Now, without further ado, we'll turn things over to Adam.
Thank you, John. I just want to briefly go over today's agenda. And so, the topics we're going to cover today are student texting and the TCPA, rules for different types of messages. And specifically, we'll get into examples of marketing, informational, and emergency messages, and just some compliance and best practices that I think really goes above and beyond what you're required to do under the TCPA, and which will really eliminate, really any type of litigation risk if you comply with those best practices. So in texting in higher education, I get this asked a lot, can I legally text students? And the answer is absolutely yes. I think a lot of people are scared off by the headlines and litigation, but this is a saying I have is that 15 minutes can save you $15 million, just because compliance is very easy. If you start with what does the TCPA prohibit, and it's really auto-dialed communications sent without the recipient's prior express consent. And so we'll get into, in this presentation, we'll just assume that we're dealing with auto dialers, but platforms like TrueDialogue specifically have been ruled not to be an auto dialer, but we're going to just, for purposes of today's presentation, just assume that consent is required, which is just a best practice that once you have consent, you don't really need to worry about the type of technology that you're using. So to begin with the actual law that we're going to be dealing with today, the TCPA, which is short for the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. This was a law that was passed in 1991. It governs how consumers can be contacted by telephone, fax, and text. And one of the key provisions of the law is the restrictions around what are called in the statute automatic telephone dialing system, or auto dialer for short. It was, originally designed to limit those nuisance telephone calls around, the dinner table, but it has expanded to include a lot more, since it was first adopted in 91. And one of the bigger rulings under the statute was that in 2003, the FCC encompassed or brought in text messaging into the TCPA fold. The big issue with the Telephone Consumer Protection Act is that it's what's called a private attorney general statute. And what that means is that a private litigant can, if they're, receive communications in alleged violation of the statute, can institute a claim in court to enforce their rights. The issue with the TCPA is that it can result in somewhat mind-boggling damages, because it's just a mathematical statute that you have $500 per message received in violation, or if there's a knowing violation, you can treble that, meaning that you get triple damages if someone willfully violated the statute. So, 10,000 auto-dialed calls, which can be, sent at the click of a button, can result in, $15 million in damages fairly quickly. In terms of the private right of action and the statutory damages figures, the Congress, when it passed the TCPA, it thought that this type of $500 to $1,500 per message would be a good incentive to get individual plaintiffs to file suit in small claims court. The problem with that was the unintended consequence of class action plaintiffs' attorneys latching on to the statute. And that's where, again, some of these mind-boggling damages figures can come. There was a complaint filed for $1.2 trillion in damages, just because, again, it's mathematical application of number of messages sent in violation of the statute times $500 or $1,500. In terms of the latest updates in the TCPA, I think we have hopefully passed the high water mark of TCPA litigation, because there has been, since 2015, a lot of, across the country, reasonable orders coming out from both the circuit court level and just a couple weeks ago, the FCC issued a declaratory ruling where they adopted a fairly great interpretation of what an autodialer is. And it aligns with what the statute says it is, which means it has to have the capacity to randomly or sequentially generate telephone numbers and to dial those numbers. And so that's why you have had platforms like True Dialogues ruled not to be an autodialer, because there is simply no number generation capacity involved in or permitted in the platform. If you want to use True Dialogue's platform, for instance, you have to bring your own numbers, or the prospective student has to join your alert program by texting a keyword. There's no way to generate telephone numbers through the platform. And so we've had a lot of great rulings recently, which I think are going to undercut the probability of future litigation. But again, right now we're focused on just assuming that you're going to be using an autodialer and what type of consent would be necessary. So getting into the type of consent, it's going to depend on the type of message you're sending. Under the TCPA, there are a few types that are recognized that require differing levels of consent. So starting with the strictest form of consent, you're going to have marketing messages. Next, you're going to have informational messages. Then the third type of message that's recognized in the statute is emergency. And emergency is going to be actually totally outside the statute, because the TCPA was never designed to restrict access to emergency communications. And then the fourth type of message, which is really just a hybrid message, is where you're including two different messages or types of message in the same overall message. That is, largely you have to round up to the more restrictive type of consent. So getting into rules for marketing messages, what is a marketing message under the statute? And the statute says that telemarketing is essentially that you're encouraging someone to purchase a product, good, or service. The rules for that, the FCC issued an order in 2012 where they came up with a new enhanced level of consent. And what it's called is prior express written consent. So if you want to use an autodialer and send someone telemarketing messages, you need a specific type of consent. And the consent needs to be clear and conspicuous. A good example would be a pop-up message with an unchecked box, which would allow the person to agree that, yes, I'm affirmatively consenting to receive auto-dialed telemarketing messages from you. And so in actuality, it can be a very simple message. It really only needs two sentences. It needs to disclose to the consumer that there's going to be an autodialer, and then that they're agreeing to receive messages that are telemarketing or promotional in nature. And then the only other issue that you need to address is to inform the consumer that they don't have to consent. That consent is not a condition of any type of purchase with you. So again, I think that the basic assumption for these types of messages, you start from the premises that people generally don't want to receive telemarketing messages unless they expressly opt in. And so that's, really the regime we're in for telemarketing. It's an opt-in regime with a few specific disclosures required. And so given that, however, there's a lot of flexibility in how you can obtain that consent. There's no magic language other than what I just covered, the two sentences. There's some flexibility there to fit your specific use case. And in terms of the actual medium, there's even more flexibility. So you could do it on a website, you could do it on a physical form, you could allow someone to text in a keyword in response to a poster at your university, you could do it in email responses. So as long as you're doing it electronically or even physically on paper forms, as long as you are retaining the opt-in consent, that's really all you need to do. Is that you have the 2 sentences and you retain the records, because in TCPA litigation, consent is an affirmative defense, meaning that you as the potential sender of the message have to prove that the plaintiff actually gave you their consent. It's not hard to get, but you just have to be keeping the records to establish that you have the consent necessary. Now, rules for informational messages are a lot easier, to put it bluntly. So there's actually no specific rule for consent for informational auto-dialed messages. In 1992, when the FCC adopted the first rules for any type of auto-dialed message, they didn't actually distinguish between telemarketing or informational at that time. They treated all messages the same. What the FCC ruled was that the consumer's voluntary release of their telephone number to the sender constituted prior express consent. And it could be oral, it could be written. So, really any type of, student application form, any type of inquiry where the student releases their telephone number to you would constitute prior express consent to receive any type of auto-dialed informational message. And this is really around the premise that people want to receive informational messages. So it could be, really any type of message that isn't telemarketing has to be either informational or emergency messages. So just student alerts, payment reminders, specifically tuition alerts that your tuition is past due, any type of message that governs the existing relationship is by and large going to be considered informational. Unless you're trying to sell something new to the student, it's going to be informational. Informational is a really easy standard to satisfy, and all you really need to do, if there's ever a dispute, is just have a record that this student disclosed his telephone number to me, and that would resolve the dispute. Now, the final category of messages is going to be emergency/urgent messages that you need to get out, that are going to affect or potentially affect the safety or health of the intended recipient. Any type of a message that would arguably help or reduce the likelihood of someone getting injured or worse would very likely qualify as an emergency message. And as stated at the top of this presentation, such messages are totally outside the scope of the TCPA. We do not want to restrict messages that are, trying to convey emergency information. So you can think of an Amber Alert or a school shooting alert, any type of message where you need to get it out fast. As a practical matter, you probably already have their consent to send this message if you have their telephone number in your database. But even if you don't, or there's for some reason a reassigned number in the pool, you do not have to worry about any type of consent to get out an emergency message. So just to give you an example of a hybrid message, if one part of the message instructs someone that their tuition for the current semester is past due, that would be considered informational. But at the same time, if you also wanted to encourage them to commit to the next semester, which they haven't done yet, then that could be considered telemarketing as well. So if all of that is sent in one message, it would be considered a hybrid message, and therefore you would want to round up to the strictest level of consent required, and that would be the telemarketing prior express written consent. So again, not complicated. It's just that you have to round up to the stricter level of consent. So now, just to put it all together to stay compliant with the TCPA, again, we're assuming that we're using an autodialer. That's not always a safe assumption. And I think the way the law is going, you're going to have a better defense that, like platforms like TrueDialogue, there's no capacity to randomly or sequentially dial numbers, and therefore it's not an autodialer. But again, assuming that you need consent, it's not hard to get. So it's really about just establishing from the outset a strict onboarding process. If you want to send students or prospective students messages that could be considered telemarketing in nature, if you're trying to get them to enroll at your university, assume that you will need some enhanced consent. And so you just need to have those disclosures up front to the prospective student that they're agreeing to receive auto-dialed telemarketing messages, but they don't have to if they don't want to. So that's really all there is to capturing consent, to be on the safe side in the TCPA. From my experience in the litigation trenches, there's not a lot of litigation around certainly informational messages, or much less transactional messages about tuition reminders, payment reminders, course selection deadlines. No one is suing over those types of messages. By and large, 95% of litigation surrounds marketing messages and overwhelmingly unsolicited marketing messages. There are very few issues around purely informational and emergency messages. So in terms of best practices, get consent. That way you do not have to worry about whether you're using an autodialer or not. I would say that having that argument in your back pocket is a good one to have. If there's for any reason that there's some sort of reassigned number or there's a dispute about who gave consent, not using an autodialer is always a good defense to have. Now, you also want to make sure that you have a clear and easy way for students to opt out if they so choose. The TCPA doesn't require any type of specific disclosures to students to say this is how you should or you can opt out. But if you drive students to just text stop to stop, that's going to be the most reasonable way for them to opt out. And courts would say, well, if you didn't text stop and you tried some other less frequently used method for opting out, that wasn't reasonable. So the bottom line is that if you tell people how to opt out and they follow instructions, and platforms like TrueDialogue programmatically recognize opt-out requests, you're going to cover yourself on the back end if someone does want to opt out of receiving future auto-dialed communications. And as we stated previously, consent is an affirmative defense. And so what that means, again, is that you as the sender would need to establish that student X provided me his telephone number, or student X provided his telephone number in the face of these disclosures, and therefore I have all of the consent necessary to send him informational or telemarketing text messages as the case may be. Now, that's the baseline. If you do that, you're going to be fully compliant with the TCPA, and you should be off to the races texting students and prospective students. Now, to take it to another level in terms of protecting yourself from TCPA litigation, what you can do is, and it's very simple, is just you would have some additional terms and conditions that incorporate class action waivers and arbitration provisions, and add some good choice of law provisions if your location allows, where if the person is agreeing to join your mobile alert program, you make it subject to these, very short terms and conditions. And by agreeing to join the alert program subject to those terms, they are essentially limiting their options to initiate class action litigation. And if there's any dispute, they would have to arbitrate. Those terms would, even if you're for some reason non-compliant, those would save you from the type of, really problematic class action litigation. So that can eliminate really any type of litigation risk if you adopt terms and conditions that are going to be favorable to you.
Okay, now we are entering the Q&A portion of our webinar, and we've had several questions come in. So thank you, Adam, for a great presentation on all things SMS and text for higher education. First question that's showing up here is, what are you referencing when you say DNC policy in the final slide?
Now, the DNC policy refers to a do not call policy. And so it's just, and it could be part of a privacy policy. It could be part of terms of service that I just mentioned, but it essentially would govern how you as a university or organization monitor and record do not call requests. So again, it can be very simple. It could be a paragraph long, but there is another section of the TCPA that is more general. It's not related to auto dialing specifically, but it concerns telemarketing in general. And the way it is written, it says that before you initiate any telemarketing calls, you should have a DNC policy in place and be available on demand to anyone that asks for it. So again, that's why it's just another good way to comply with that separate provision by having a terms of service that just spells out, if you don't want to get text from us, just text stop. Easy enough. So that's a quick and easy way of addressing that separate provision.
Okay, next question is, can we segment students to send them only relevant information inside of TrueDialogue? And the answer to that is absolutely. Any of the attributes that exist inside that you've collected on the students can be used to create different student segments or prospective student segments. So for instance, if you've got students that are interested in certain degrees and you want to send out relevant information on that degree to those students, you can segment them out and create them in a separate list and message them specific information on that degree. We can also segment on different things like birthday or desired start date. These are just a few things that our current customer base of over 300 universities use to create very specific messaging out to their student base. How are schools using integration between TrueDialogue and their CRM or SIS systems? That's a great question, and it really varies, again, by customer. Many of our customers have created very basic integration points between their SIS systems or CRM systems and our platform. For instance, on SIS systems, many are using very old legacy systems, and the integration is simply to transfer student or prospective student data from their internal systems to our platform, and then they use our platform for ongoing messaging. Other institutions have gone well beyond that and completely integrated our systems to where data transfer is in real time and transferring not only student information like the student phone number and any of the attributes on the student that they want to use for personalization and segmentation, but they also want to take all the messages coming in and out of our system to that particular student and reapply them to their internal systems. The neat thing about TrueDialogue is that you can bite off as much as you want to. And in often cases, we've got existing integration points in with some of the more common CRM and SIS systems. How does a advisor or employee know when a student is texting in a question if they're not logged into the TrueDialogue system? Well, TrueDialogue has spent a lot of time thinking about this. And since we developed the system, really, along with one of the leading online universities, this was something that we hit and addressed early on in our development. The way that we notify our users is really based off of if they are logged in or if they're not logged in. And we kind of even go beyond that is if they're logged in and not on a tab with the TrueDialogue screen. Let's take the first one as an example as to where they've logged into TrueDialogue and they're communicating back and forth with the student, and then they go to another screen to start working on another task because that student hasn't responded. And then while they're on that other screen, the student responds, and we want to notify the advisor that that student has responded. There will be a sound, an audio component of it, notifying the end user that the student has responded, as well as the tab of which TrueDialogue is open will flash, and there'll be a message on that tab denoting that there is an incoming message waiting to be answered. Now, if they're not logged into TrueDialogue, we will do a couple of things as well. First and foremost, there will be a notification sent via email notifying you that Student has responded and with this message. We initially just were responding, letting you know that there was an incoming message waiting. We further enhanced that over the years, notifying you not only that the student responded, but what the content of that message is. This allows the advisor or employee to read the message and understand if the student is waiting on a response, as opposed to them simply responding okay or great. That doesn't require the advisor to go in and answer anything further. Okay. What can we do besides collecting consent to protect ourselves?
So consent is obviously the biggest cure-all. The second aspect of a TCPA claim would be whether it's auto-dialed. So do your homework. Find a platform that is not an auto-dialer, or engage in, there's bulk messaging and there's also peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer is, particularly after the FCC's most recent ruling, is going to be a very safe alternative to bulk messaging. So do your homework on who your platform provider is and whether they're an auto-dialer or not. Now, the third precaution that I would take in terms of creating, multiple defenses is, again, having a terms of service where the student or the prospective student is agreeing to class action waivers and arbitration provisions.
Great, thanks. We have another question for Adam. When you say written in express written consent, does that actually mean we have to have a written consent collected? Also, can we collect consent over a phone call?
So written is a bit of a misnomer. The better way of looking at it or interpreting it, that phrase, is it has to be, or it could be, electronic. So again, you can have paper consent, but the way the law has been implemented, as long as you are capturing consent in a way that complies with state contract law, and nearly every state has adopted what's called the Uniform Electronic Commerce Act, which essentially boils down to any type of process, electronic or otherwise, that basically allows someone to show that they consent to something, would be considered an electronic signature. So again, the various ways you can obtain consent are many. You can do it through a website, you can do it through a click box, you can do it through a recorded voice, key press, over the phone. It just has to be logically associated with someone agreeing to the actual disclosure. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you obtain prior express written consent.
Okay, and we have a follow-up question to that one, and it's, how long do we need to keep the opt-in information once we've stopped texting the student?
There's no specific requirement for how long you have to keep consent, but the standard statute of limitations for a TCPA claim would be 4 years. So it's just good practice to keep consent or records of consent for 4 years. But just as an aside here, it's not good practice to keep your old telephone records if you don't have to. So that just makes it easier for the plaintiff's bar to tabulate damages if it comes to that. So I would say keep consent for as long as 4 years after the opt-out occurs. But otherwise, you don't need to keep records if you don't have to for some other reason. So, I would encourage folks to have a highly manicured outbox.
Next question is if a student opts out of one type of text communication, for instance, financial aid, does that opt them out of all communications with the university? And the answer to that is, it depends on what your preference is. Many of our customers will maintain what we call different subscriptions based off of the functional area of the university. So financial aid might have its own messaging stream. The registrar might have its own messaging stream and subscription. Recruiting might have its own messaging stream, and advising might have its own messaging stream and subscription. We can set it up to where if the student replies stop, they're opted out of all messaging streams going forward, or that specific message stream in which they're replying stop to. But great question. We have another question here that asks, we want to use our main number for students to call in to and text from. so it's more convenient and they can save it in their phone. Is this possible with TrueDialogue? And the answer is yes. There is a process called hosted messaging, which allows us to basically submit to your existing phone provider a request to take over the texting component of the phone number. All of your existing voice communications and contracts still exist with your current voice provider. However, we would take over the bandwidth that's used for texting. In the instance that it's simply a landline now, we would text enable that number and take over the texting component of that phone number, and that would be available to you. That process typically takes anywhere between 24 to 48 hours to enable. Next question is that can you send links to documents and images within a text? And the answer is absolutely. Very common. However, there are some, as the telecom industry has evolved, so have the spammers of the world that have gotten very attuned to sending out bulk messages and with links in them, commit spam and fraud, primarily using long codes, because the process with short codes takes a little bit longer to get accepted by the carriers. Because of the increase and proliferation of spam, carriers have instituted content blocking software in many instances. They all use the same systems. However, they're all able to institute different rules. And if you're sending out larger volumes with links, there's a high likelihood, using long codes, there's a high likelihood that those links are going to get blocked. Also, those content blocking systems also really look for things like bit.ly and other common link shorteners that spammers use. What about scheduling? Can we schedule messages to be delivered at certain times? And the answer is yes. And going back to Adams, we further have kind of hit this as well, is that, you know, our system will also allow you to schedule certain messages to be delivered and by time zone as well. So if you're on the East Coast and predominantly all of your students or devices that you're communicating with are located on the East Coast, you can specifically schedule campaigns to go out during certain East Coast hours. If you're in Central, it can be Central, Mountain, Eastern, and again, really allows you to control when the message goes out. Okay, when we send a masked message to students using a short code and they respond, how does that work? Do all staff have to respond from a single inbox? And the answer is, with our system, no, that's not required. We have several ways that we can distribute incoming messages that are coming back as a response to an outbound message off of a short code. We can distribute them based off of an assigned ID, meaning that a student has a counselor assigned to them already. We can route all incoming messages from that student's number to that advisor's inbox, should you want to do that. We also give you the ability that if there's no assigned employee or advisor or person at your university to that user, we can distribute them amongst a group of users inside of your university. So that allows for even distribution. We call it a round robin distribution format, where incoming messages go amongst all of the users or a certain subset of users that are online during that day, to allow quick response and allow not have one user get overloaded with responses. Okay, next question is, what information can we see within your reporting and how can that help us improve our effort? It's a great question. And I think that our reports are pretty in-depth in that they can help you start to understand patterns and understand and optimize your existing efforts, not so much by understanding who's responding, but further by understanding who's not responding. I think that one of the things, for instance, tracking of links, we can easily track who's clicked on a particular link inside of a message and allow you to create a list on that and then use that as a suppression list to send out the same campaign again to all the users who haven't clicked. Further, our reporting will also allow you to measure other metrics. For instance, one of our most popular that was developed again with higher ed in mind is what we call our activity monitoring reports. That allows you to monitor all of the accounts inside of your system and measure over a specified period of time, which is controlled by you, how many individuals they've communicated with over a specified period of time, how many messages they've received and sent over that period of time, and allow you to really kind of find out who your superstars are and who the people that are not using our systems effectively are, and either provide further training or improve the talent inside of your organization based off of their low usage rates. What are the pros and cons of using a shared short code? Do you offer dedicated short codes as well? It's a good question. I think first we want to basically understand, what a shared short code is versus a dedicated short code. A short code is a 5 to 6 digit code that is used to send out primarily for bulk messaging. It's also used very commonly for text in campaigns. Text in to get more information from True Dialogue University, text in the word career or text in the word degree. And when they text in that keyword, we record it, and we can also assign a follow-up campaign to go out anytime someone texts in that specific keyword. And again, these are primarily done on short codes. Why? Because it's easier for an individual to remember a 5 to 6 digit code versus a 10-digit code. And shared short codes have evolved over time in that originally, because there is a high cost involved with procuring a short code, which is our charges are $800 a month to get a dedicated short code. It also takes a period of time to get approved on a dedicated short code by the carriers. Companies like ours started providing what are called shared short codes, meaning that we have multiple customers using that same short code. One of the things that's been coming up more and more is that the carriers, because of abuse of those short codes, are starting to crack down on them and prohibit them. As a matter of fact, you can no longer apply for and receive, companies like ours can no longer apply for and receive shared short codes. So they're slowly dialing them back. And at some point, probably in the next 6 to 12 months, they're going to eliminate shared short codes altogether. So if you don't have dedicated short code and would like to use one, I would recommend getting on those sooner rather than later. Again, the cost and timing on those is it's $800 a month. The lease on short codes is 3 months. So you are leasing them there's a minimum of a 3-month contract once you sign up. And it takes anywhere between 4 and 12 weeks to procure a dedicated short code that's only yours. And there would be no other universities or other clients using that code. What types of integrations do you offer? Currently, we have several integrations that are available out of the box. We offer a Microsoft Dynamics integration out of the box, and we offer a Salesforce integration out of the box. We have a Marketo integration available out of the box. And further, we have a campus management integration available out of the box. We're adding to our integrations currently and expect the Campus Nexus from Campus Management integration to be done, as well as a Five9 integration, which we're in the process of completing as we speak, which allow you to use the unified messenger platform inside of Five9 and text out using our texting API. What happens if a student texts us after hours? Is there a way to reply with an automated response? And the answer is absolutely. We offer what we call an out-of-office attendant that will monitor your phone number, and anytime the student texts in, when that is enabled, you can send back and alert the student that your office hours are during this time, and if you have an immediate need, you can contact another number. That's customizable by the university and actually by the end user if they want to create a specific message for themselves. On your website, you refer to team-based messaging. What does that mean, and how does it benefit my university? The word team-based, we use that term in reference to, lack of a better term, group messaging. So since we developed this with one of the leading online universities, the way that they structured things and wanted to be able to communicate with students was as groups. And inside of each group, they've got different group members assigned to each student. They've got a representative from financial aid. They've got representatives from academic advising. They've got representatives from the registrar. And they wanted to be able to log in and view all the communication stream to that student from one window, even though the student might be being texted from different numbers, be able to see the entire communication string that's happened between the university and that student, regardless of what group has been communicating with the student. We call that a team-based approach, and it's been very effective in that this allows you to go in, and if there are other conversations that are happening with that student, allow you to seamlessly step in and get a full picture of what the status of the student is based off of previous communications. Further to that point, we've added in some additional tools in that if you want to keep the communication streams different, we also allow you to do things like transfer communications. So if financial aid has been communicating with a student and they are ready to take the next step in their enrollment process, the financial aid group can actually transfer, like you would a phone call, to another group or individual inside of the organization. Well, that's all for questions at this point. If you have additional questions or would like to get in touch with Adam after this, you can reach out to me directly. My email address is jw, that's jw at truedialogue.com. And I'd be happy to put you in touch with Adam or answer any of your questions related to this webinar. Thank you again for your time. Have a wonderful day.